Hey there, Dave Paulides, canammissing project, copyrighted edition for our video page. And I'm back here in the silo. It's blowing about 40 miles an hour outside. It'd probably blow the sock right off my mic. But yeah, I'm going to start the session solemnly today. I had a counseling meeting over my grief, and I've tried to become tied into this community here in the Flathead County, because wherever I go I am concerned about people and kind of the pulse of the area. I was told something today that just blew my socks off. As I've told you over the last year, that the true disaster of COVID is going to be the amount of suicides we've had during that period. And folks, it's not being reported. The news isn't talking about it, and it's getting me irate. Well, my counselor today confirmed what I heard yesterday. This is an unbelievable statistic. Since May of 2021, and it's now mid-September, 13 teenagers have taken their lives in our county. 13. It was a rough session anyhow, and that broke me down. The way the conversation got started is in the local paper a couple days ago. There was an obituary for a young man, a real good looking young guy. And I was sitting alone at lunch reading it. And I don't read obituaries very often, but I read this young man's. And it said that he was a 4.0 student. Said that he played varsity sports for all 4 years that he was at high school. He was entering his senior year. Or he had started his senior year. He was class president. And it talked about all of his achievements. And when I was reading it, it was just like Ben. It was just like Ben. High achiever. Excelled at what he attempted. And this boy even did things Ben didn't do. He was a social person. I found out, this is the part that just kills me. Angie and I went to a grief getaway at this lake between here and Libby, Montana, and it was sponsored by one of the counselors I've been seeing and her organization. And there was probably, I don't know, 50, 60 kids, and it's just for kids going through grief, losing someone. And they had a series of volunteers, and these were all like junior to senior kids. And during the summer, they volunteered their time for this 3-day weekend to help the younger kids at this camp. And one of the people that volunteered his time was this boy. And I remember sitting inside the building at the end of the night. They were talking about the weekend, and this young man was sitting 10 feet from me. And he was taking care of this younger boy who you could tell really looked up to him. And this younger boy had watched his dad die of a heart attack in front of him months earlier. He was having trouble with grief. This young man helped him all through the weekend. Nobody really knows the story behind what happened to this young man. But I was told that he gave a presentation to the student body at the beginning of the year about how you need to keep track of your mental health. And you need to be healthy. Yet nobody saw what was coming. And while he was looking out for others, maybe he wasn't looking out for himself enough. Maybe he was looking for answers at this retreat that we went to. But not many kids in high school would do what that young man did by helping kids he didn't even know over a weekend, who had gone through grief and were trying to understand how to live with it. Wow. Those are the kind of people we need in our society. Those are the kind of people we want in our society. People that show empathy, compassion. And at his age, he was going places. My God, what's happening? 13 kids since May. Again, I've told you, it's not here. I know about it here because I'm tuned in. It's happening all over. My session today didn't even deal with me. I was and so was the counselor, having a tough time dealing with what we can do, how we can make an impact, how we can change things. This isn't what high school is supposed to be about. High school is supposed to be a fun, loving time. It's supposed to be at the place where you start to set your standards and develop your code in life. We talked about a lot of things. I told her some things that I don't think she's ever heard before about possibilities. Oh. And I hope somebody's listening. That's all I'm asking. I prayed today a lot. I talked to Ben a bunch. I hope I get some answers. I hope I get some help on this. I came home, I told Angie what happened, and I said, I know what those parents are going through right now. I know what they're feeling. And it's horror. It's beyond horror. Because when somebody takes their life, all of their issues, everything about them will follow that parent for a lifetime. And as I've said before, if you're having a difficult time in life and you're thinking about taking your life, call NAMI, N-A-M-I, and they will help. They have classes that are phenomenal. But also, when you take your life, that really isn't it. Your life goes on in our eyes. Parents, loved ones, friends, forever. We will forever ask ourselves what we did wrong. How could we have allowed this to happen? I don't care what you think. It becomes a blame game. I deal with that all the time. And I know these parents are dealing with it too. So please, I know how bad it can be at certain times. And that isn't the answer. There's a lot of people out here that love you guys a lot. I'm one. And you know what? The people that are here in this village, they're good people. They care. And if somebody's out there saying, hey, you know what, I've never had a depressed moment in your life, you're the first I've ever met. Because everybody does. It's how we deal with it. I'm going to talk to you about some cases tonight. I guarantee those parents went through some moments of absolute hell. So first I'm going to read you some things. Lighten it up a bit. Sorry. So the first story, it's kind of weird. It's from September 17th, 1908. The title of it is Missing Horse Invades Bedroom. It says, animal found upstairs in house after search of 24 hours. Location is Detroit, Michigan. It says, James Weir, chief clerk of the freight department at the Detroit United Railway, is authority for a most amazing story of a horse. Weir's veracity is unchallenged. Monday, a freight driver for the company missed a horse. After searching the neighborhood for 24 hours, he gave the animal up as lost. But in the afternoon, he heard a queer noise upstairs and going to an unused bedroom, found the missing horse. Nobody can tell how the horse got upstairs into the bedroom. The stairs are not overly strong and must have been strained when the horse went up. A hole was knocked in the ceiling and a block and tackle rigged for getting the horse up to the roof and lower him down over the side. But the rigging broke, and the floor being no stronger than the stairs, let the horse down into the parlor. The animal was badly injured, but its owner has hopes of saving its life. Now, I read you that story because, well, we talk about missing people, about a missing horse. Now, if they couldn't take the horse down the stairs, how did the horse get up the stairs? Maybe it didn't get up the stairs. There's nothing more to the story, and I didn't find any other supporting articles. But there's been many times where children were found in areas that had been searched, just like they said, multiple times. Where'd the horse go? How'd the child get in the room? There's a lot of stories in my books, which all start with the title Missing 411, where kids are found in areas that have been searched dozens of times. I should stop here and say, do not buy my books on Amazon, eBay, etc. They're ripping you off. My books are $24.99 on my website. And you can watch the movies, Missing 411 The Hunted and Missing 411 for free on YouTube Movies. And I think they're on Hulu right now as well. Okay, next story. You know, I talk about falls a lot. People falling, getting hurt, dying. Dateline, Boulder, Colorado, December 6, 73. A rescue leader says what caused two college students to fall to their deaths during a snowstorm on a mountain climbing trip will remain a mystery, even though a rescue party was in voice contact with one of the climbers before he fell. Quoting, "They're the only ones who will ever know what happened up there," rescue leader Dean Boyer said Tuesday. Quoting, "There's no possible way we can ever find out," end of quotes. Daniel T. Frank, 18, of Bay Village, Ohio, and Guy D. Jenks, 18, of Colorado Springs, died trying to climb a mountain in the Flatiron Range, located just 2 miles from the University of Colorado campus. I've been to the Flatirons many times. It's a beautiful location. When you look at those mountains, they're big, giant pieces of granite that kind of look like the backside of an iron. That's why they're called the Flatirons. Rarely will you see an article that spells it out like that. How much of a mystery it is, and rescuers usually try to explain it away. But too many times people fall in areas where they shouldn't be falling, disappear in areas where they shouldn't disappear. I stumbled across these two articles and thought they were interesting. Now, for an article I'm very peeved about. It was September 18th of this year. The title, "Several people have gone missing in national parks across the country in the past week." It's on insider.com. It said multiple people have gone missing in national parks across the country over the past week as authorities search for Gabby Petito, a 22-year-old woman. We know she was found deceased. Article says others have gone missing in Grand Teton in the past few weeks. The Jackson Hole News and Guide reported that Robert Bob Lowry, 46 of Texas, has been missing since August 20th. He was found. She doesn't say that. Even more have also gone missing in national parks across the country. And they talk about a case in Grand Canyon where somebody went missing. They were found. It's like this person didn't even try to get the story correct. Then they talk about somebody in Olympic National Park. They were found. But there's a line in here that really torques me up. It says, there is no database of how many people go missing in national parks every year, but the National Park Service has at least 29 cold cases of people who have gone missing and have yet to be found. Oh my gosh. Again, journalism, I think, is gone. And investigative journalists, there's only a handful left. So this person says, quoting, there are 29 cold cases in national parks. Folks, I've written about 60 cases in Yosemite National Park where the people are missing and haven't been found. And it was at that point that Yosemite released a list of 60 people who are missing from just their park. What is this person writing? Garbage. You gotta at least try, journalists, if you want to call yourself that. At least try. Missing people in national parks, I think my name might come up. Gee, you could read a little bit about what I've done. It's unreal. It's unreal. And I get people who call themselves journalists and say, well, we're put under such time constraints and, we've got to spew out so many words per day. Hey, if you're going to spew out words that aren't true, why spew them out? Unbelievable. Okay, first letter. Dear Dave, I hope you and yours are doing well, that you're continuing to heal. Your bravery in showing us this raw side of your life is powerful and beautiful testimony to your tender and loving heart and soul. I'm sure you've heard that countless times before, but it's true. Never stop believing that. Something came to me while doing some thinking on the more peculiar cases, particularly the ones where adults and children will inexplicably wander off and disappear. Sometimes being found delirious, sometimes not being found at all. For example, the case of Terrence Woods in 2018 always struck out to me. A man just running off into the wilderness without a trace for no reason is something that boggles my mind. Terrence is a case I've done a video about. He was with a film crew in Idaho. Film crew said that for no reason at all, he's standing next to people and he just takes off on a dead run into the middle of the wilderness. It's the same day that another woman disappeared about 40 miles away. It's one of the strangest double disappearances I've ever addressed. Terrence was from Maryland. He had a degree. He's never been found. I was reminded of the old folklore surrounding entities known commonly in the West as will-o'-the-wisps, orbs of light that would usually be seen around swamps and other bodies of water, often captivating and leading passerby to their deaths to the point it was ingrained in oral and written folkloric tradition. Where have I heard about bodies of water and missing people before? I'm sure it's just a coincidence. There's a number of folkloric reasons behind them, but most often they're seen as spirits trapped between worlds. Unbaptized children, fairies, elemental spirits, souls doomed to wander the earth by deals with the devil or attachments they can't let go of, and so on. As a Catholic, and even aside from that, and just as a skeptic with a firm belief in the spiritual, it seems clear to me that spiritual entities roam the earth and can interface with us in some way, sometimes benevolently, and sometimes not so much. The phenomena is not limited to Europe. Mexico is not limited to Europe. Mexico has the brujas, witches, who can become these orbs, and luces del tesoro, treasure lights. Louisiana natives have the five fillet. Brazil has the boitata, and numerous other South American countries have equivalents. In Asia, they are known as the Alea de Bengalis, Shirbatati in the India-Pakistan border, and the Hirotama in Japan. This is not just a localized European phenomenon, and the attributes and motivations given to them all roughly line up in a fascinating way. Some say it's swamp gas. Some say it's something from beyond the realm. A realm we can't touch, but are still intimately connected to. Just a curious little thing I thought I'd pass on to you. Take care of yourself. You and Ben are both in the prayer book I offer up every time I go to church and plan to be buried with. Find comfort in the warmth of the sun on your face and the love of your Creator to this day, and keep up the great work. I know Ben is with you always, and he's so proud of you. Thank you. Thanks for that very much. Well, I read these letters for a reason, because it gives you a broader understanding of what I may already know. If you haven't read the books, I often talk about these entities in the books and localized beliefs from different countries. And a lot of you throw it at me occasionally. If you haven't read the book, you don't know I do that, but I do. And a lot of it lines up just like she said. So, on to the cases. First case I'm going to talk about is from the central region of Utah. A man named Gregg Max Montanya. He was 38 years old. He was a hunter. I'm talking about this case for a reason. It's hunting season right now. And there's thousands of hunters across our country that go into the woods by themselves without a personal locator beacon. And there's always going to be a few every year that are never going to come out, and we're not going to know where they're at. If they had a beacon, there's a good chance that they would have been found. So, September 28th, 1982, in the Manti La Salle Mountains, kind of in south central Utah, he was elk hunting with friends. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Elk hunting is probably one of the most dangerous animals to hunt that I've done research about. Why? Can't really say why, I don't know. But for some reason, a lot of people who go elk hunting don't come back. He was a man from Sunset, New Mexico. He was with friends, and in the middle of that day, they decided to go their separate directions and split up. And Max split up, went a different way, didn't come back. Well, that afternoon, it started to snow. It started to snow pretty hard. His friends went out anyhow, looked for him, couldn't find him, yelling, screaming. Well, they contacted the sheriff that night. Next morning, the sheriff comes out and it's snowing really hard now. But the sheriff, he decides that, from the San Pete Sheriff's Office, he decides he's going to call in equestrians and more ground teams. Snow started off at about a foot deep, and as the search progressed, it got deeper and deeper. And there were windows of time where the sheriff was able to call in for search and rescue. And there were up to 150 searchers combing the area. And they weren't finding anything. They were in an area called Miller Flat, just east of Fairview, Utah. Got a map for you. Now, it's interesting to me whenever I get and I really go into this, but Miller Flat has a reservoir. Interesting, because this entire area has no reservoir, no water really, but that does. And that's where he was at. And then the area just north of there. So here's Fairview, Utah. The border is probably, for Colorado, is about 55 miles to the east. So you can kind of get your dimensions of where you're at. So this area, it started to snow hard in the Mandy LaSalle Mountains. And there were 10 other elk hunters in this general area that were rescued about the time that Max disappeared. And there were also, unusually, about 25,000 sheep in these mountains. And this winter storm kind of took everybody by surprise, including the sheep herders. Now they got all the sheep out, but about 6,000, they said. And they didn't say what happened to them. But towards the end of the search, on the 5th day, there was 5 feet of snow on the ground. And they thought they better call it, and they better pull out. So a lot of people and a lot of articles described this area being hit by what was called the 100-year storm. It snowed so fast, so hard, they couldn't believe it. Now, the National Guard was even called out to help with the sheep and the missing hunters and with this search. It was a phenomenal storm. So with this disappearance, you've got point of separation. He was hunting with hunters, decided to split up and go a different direction. You got weather. They did put planes up in these little windows of opportunity when it cleared, hoping that Max would come out, write something in the snow. They'd see some fresh tracks, something. They didn't find anything. And the water, weather, elk hunter, point of separation. He was never found. So, and that's one of the rare disappearances in that area of the country. I tell everybody I know, before you go out and you do anything in the wilderness, check the weather. But like I said, the severity in this incident of the storm, nobody really thought it was going to be that bad of a storm. So it caught everyone by surprise. So that was Gregg Max Montanya, 38 years old, 28th of September, 1982. Next case. This one, I talked to you guys about distance traveled, about young people, about healthy young people. It's rare that I talk to you about someone who has art ability, was an artist. That's what the story is about. A young man named Everett Roos. It's a picture of Everett. I'm going to tell you about him. Went missing in November 1934, 21 years old. He was in the Davis Gulch area of Utah. He was the son of a minister, and they traveled a lot going to different areas. He was described as extremely smart and artistic. And when he was young, he used to write poetry and do woodworking. Well, in 1931, he started to travel. And he went through Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. And he kind of did ranch hand work. He rode broncos, picked up scat, did a lot of chores around ranches, kind of earning his way. And he was painting. Yeah, he was painting. And he was a phenomenal painter. Came back and he explored Yosemite and Sequoia National Parks. And just as a side note, to tell you how smart this young man was, he learned to speak Navajo. And he went to several Hopi ceremonies. He was known for painting landscapes. In November of 34, he went into the Utah desert. He got 2 burros and 2 months worth of food, and the burros carried the food into an area near Davis Gulch. And while he was gone, he'd write letters to his family and they'd get them. And all of a sudden, they started to get his letters. And his letters were being forwarded to the family because he hadn't come out when he was expected. So the people that were holding his letters put a search crew together and they went into the area near Davis Gulch. This is part of the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. So this is Arizona. This right here is the line. Here's Utah. Lots of water in the area he was at. He was in the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Here's the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument area, which borders this area. The region he was in had really steep canyon walls, lots of places to get shade, etc., and an area to get good, clean water. And he was camped near water. Well, when he disappeared, there was a big search. They found a corral that he had made at this Davis Gulch. And on the wall of the canyon, they found the words Nemo, November 1934. And they knew that he had written that. So they knew he was there. Kind of on the north side of the gulch, not far from where he was at, they found his burros. Now, there was a lot of theories what happened to Everett. And none of them are good. Some say maybe he was murdered. Some say a flash flood maybe and taken him out. Other people thought maybe he tried to climb the canyon walls and fell and they didn't find the body. A lot of people spoke about Everett in the terms of Ansel Adams. That's how good his work was. He was a very sure of himself young man. I'm going to show you the picture again. But imagine yourself when you were 18, 19, 20, and you would just take off and start exploring areas with no contact, no phone service, no nothing. But that's the way he was. And he paid his way by painting and writing poetry for people. A phenomenal young person this is a great mystery. Everett Royce, November 1934, never found. Now, I've talked to you before about Harvey Pratt. Harvey is a Native American artist. I think he's one of the best in the world. And he got granted the Native American Military Memorial at the Smithsonian. And it's going to be dedicated later this year or next year. But if you look it up online, it is one of the most phenomenal pieces of work I've ever seen. And Harvey and I spent a lot of time. He's from outside Oklahoma City. I've been to his house many times, and he and his wife Gina, two of the best people you ever want to meet. Well, we've done a lot of conferences throughout Oklahoma together, and a lot of time in eastern Oklahoma. A strange place to say the least. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on out there. And most of the time we stayed in a little town called Tallahena. Talihina, I think, Tallahena. And there's not much to the town, but we were very lucky to find this little tiny guest house. And it's called the Hootie Creek Guest House. Hootie, H-O-O-T-I-E. I'm not paid for this. This is just an advisory. That place is phenomenal. Hootie Creek Guest House, a place in the middle of nowhere, and the couple that own it are just the greatest people around. And you stay there, and in the morning, you get breakfast, come back late at night like we did, and they'd have cookies for you. The rooms, they took this old building and rebuilt it. You can look it up online. They've done a great job. And if you're ever in that area, go there, and please tell them that Harvey and Dave sent you. They'll remember us. But anyhow, the reason I'm bringing this up is because of a disappearance very near there. August 12th, 1913. Involved a young boy named Oran Trammel, 3 years old, and a young girl named Ruby Thompson, 4 years old. As I've stated before, 2 people disappearing at the same time is very unusual. And it occurred near Albion, Oklahoma. So here's Albion, and there's Tallahena. And Hootie Creek is in Tallahena. So kind of let you look at that for a second. August 12th, 1913, and it happened in the Kiamichi Mountains. The parents of both kids were working for the Woods Pumping Station, and they were building a pipeline. And both dads were working for contractors, clearing trees and brush and stuff. Both lived in Muskogee. Well, late in the afternoon, both families were missing the kids, and they started a big search. 150 people from the community came out and just covered the entire area, very thick. That night, they started bonfires, they started looking, they couldn't find anybody, yelling, etc. Well, the next day, one searcher found Ruby 6 miles away from camp. And they talked to her, and she said that her and Oran had spent the night in a cornfield. She didn't say much else. Her feet were scratched up, but 6 miles is a very long distance for a 4-year-old, especially in the woods and land that existed back then. Now, how she found a cornfield in the Kiamichi Mountains, I don't know. That was a pretty strange thing that was said. But in the meantime, Oran still hadn't been found. And everybody was hovering right around Ruby's area. And one man kind of branched out. He was a hunter. He was part of the group that was working for the pipeline. So he started tracking what he thought were some type of tracks through the woods, over ridge lines, through swales, and he kept at it. And 36 hours after Oran disappeared, he's found asleep on a trail. Now, what I've said dozens of times is when these young kids are found, they're oftentimes found groggy or asleep on a trail. So they'll be found. It's like, okay, find me. So imagine the boy is found 36 hours later. An estimate said that he had traveled between 16 and 20 miles. 3 years old, 36 hours. Now, one thing about Oran, he couldn't talk. He had a disability where he didn't have a voice box. Sound familiar? Yeah. Remember the Australian case I just talked about? And here's another case. Phenomenal distance, phenomenal circumstances. Person has a disability, can't talk. You think that's just coincidence? 150 searchers couldn't find that boy. And he's found by one man 16 to 20 miles away. What is it about the disability? Is someone or something interested in why the genetics went wrong in us? Is it something about those young people are different and so they're interested? Or does anybody believe in this audience that a 3-year-old could travel 16 to 20 miles in 36 hours? Because folks, first of all, I'll tell you right now, kids do not walk in the dark. They don't move in the dark. They'll sit there and they'll sleep. Why? Ask most 3 and 4 years old to get out and walk around in the dark. They don't want to. So that meant that really Oran had maybe 20 to 24 hours, 12 hours on its side of each day to walk around and cover 16 to 20 miles. 3-year-old. Folks, most adults couldn't do that. Most adults are too out of shape to do that. Go over ridges, down through swales. Not going to happen. This isn't a flatline walk. And then to end up on a trail asleep where he's found. What are the odds? Right? Now, you think, well, stranger things have happened, Dave. But, you know, I've replicated that story many times with different children in different locations under different circumstances. So is it just all pure by chance that we find them on the trail? Is it just that Oran was a freak kid that could walk phenomenal distances without food or water? Kids that young, I like to say, are coin operated. You fill them up with food, you turn the crank and let them go, and they're motoring. But without water and without food, kids and their ability to move greatly decrease, just like us. Remember, if you're without water for 3 days, you're on your way to dying. Kids are even more sensitive than that. So what happened here? Nobody saw him leave, which is another thing that's common on these disappearances. Turn their head, they're gone. Remember the young girl that disappeared from northern Tennessee that I talked to you about? She still hasn't been found. Or the boy from Idaho that disappeared from that neighborhood. He hasn't been found. I've done videos about both of these cases. There's a lot of open doors right now on a lot of these cases and a lot of these incidents. One thing on Gabby Petito. I knew all along that law enforcement would be looking at her boyfriend. They should have been. There would have been no doubt. It troubles me greatly that he hasn't come forward and that his parents aren't talking. I heard one news report that his sister asked to come over to the parents' house and the parents said, no, don't come over. So did that mean that they didn't want her to hear his story? Or did that mean that he wasn't there? Or did that mean something else? Don't know. But the witnesses who found that van parked in one location off the beaten path, that's really the key to this story. Now, there's no doubt that they've tracked her phone and his phone all over. And they probably have a warrant to search his phone right now. I doubt that he still has it. It's a tough case. I know that they did the autopsy, or they are going to do the autopsy on Tuesday, yesterday. Hard to say if they're going to release the results. I can say that they did a search warrant on the parents' house on Monday, and that was based on probably something they saw at that crime scene that indicated to them that it was violent. Otherwise, search warrants are not for missing people if they're just missing. Search warrants are related to criminal misconduct. So something was going on. Whatever it was, Gabby didn't deserve her demise. I feel very sorry for her parents. And I hope her boyfriend turns himself in and faces the consequences. It's one of those cases where I never Never wanted to cover a case like that, but a lot of you asked me to, and I can understand why. But anyhow, I appreciate you watching. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and please pass this on. And you know, if you're going to buy a hunter a gift, please buy him a personal locator beacon. And at least bring the topic up to a loved one who is a hunter or a fisherman, because so many people out there have never even heard of these devices. We could save so many lives by just talking about it. Thanks for watching.